5 Live Formula One.
Hello. On a weekend in which F1 has been celebrating International Women's Day and the launch of the female-only F1 Academy, the start of the Formula One season has been overshadowed as everyone is talking about the ongoing situation at Red Bull. And now the future of senior figures at the team is in doubt. Alongside me, Jenny Gao, is our lead commentator Harry Benjamin. Harry, can you just update us shortly on the goings-on at Red Bull, and then we will focus on the race?
Yeah, well, the latest thing in this off-track scandal that's going on around Red Bull is that on Friday it emerged that Helmut Marko, the motorsport consultant at Red Bull, the power behind the throne, as many described him as, was under investigation by Red Bull's parent company for alleged leaks to the media relating to the investigation into team boss Christian Horner's behaviour, which he has always denied. This could mean a lot of outcomes, one of which is that he is at risk of being suspended or even removed from his position. Obviously, this is an ongoing story, so to keep up to date with all the very latest, we'll have it on the BBC Sport website, but that's the very latest. So clearly the off-track drama is not going anywhere for Red Bull.
Yeah, thanks for updating us, Harry. As you said, go onto the BBC Sport website for more, and there will be plenty more because Andrew Benson is a busy bunny at the moment. Jack Aitken, former F1 driver, is also alongside me. Jack, a pleasure to have you here on a Saturday evening. The grid looks amazing. The lights now shining and beaming in the darkness. A night race, second one of the season. Should be good.
Yeah, happy to be here yet again, and it's a night race mainly just in name. Of course, the floodlights at these circuits these days is so good that the drivers are not going to have any issues with visibility, but it's going to be a dramatic one. You know, the nature of this circuit, such a fast-flowing track, confined by the walls with a lot of blind corners. You're going to have accidents and you're going to have a lot of wheel-to-wheel battles that potentially end in tears. So the drivers will be aware of the chaos that could be awaiting them and looking for opportunities in that chaos, I think.
Yeah, Harry, just quickly run us through the grid, please.
It's Verstappen, shock, starting on pole position alongside Charles Leclerc. Perez, Alonso, Piastri, the top 5. Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Stroll round out the top 10. Oliver Bearman debuting this weekend. We'll come on to him, I'm sure, in just a few moments. In the other Ferrari is 11th in front of Albon, Magnussen, Ricciardo and Holcomb over the top 15. Bottas, Ocon, Gasly, Sargent and Zhou, the 20 drivers are all making the start for this the second race of the season.
Right, so that's your race card. To help us through that, we also have a special guest joining us today, F1 strategist, you'll know her well, hopefully, Ruth Bascom. Hi, Ruth. It's lovely to have you here and not on the pit wall.
Lovely to be here.
How are you feeling going into a race when you're not in control of anything? Just have to speak.
A lot more relaxed.
I love that. What are we looking out for today? What can we expect?
Well, unlike last week in Bahrain, when we saw all 20 cars start on that same soft compound and all 20 cars did that two-stop race with very little flexibility, today's completely different. At Jeddah, we've had 3 races, and in those 3 races, we've seen all 3 start tyres, and that could be the same story again today. So even though it is a one-stop on paper, there's lots of flexibility on how you do that, and with safety cars, VSEs, and even red flags in the mix, lots of strategic options could be on the table today.
Okay, and it's kind of a game of 19 against 1, with everyone looking for a way to stop Max Verstappen winning this race. Let's hear from the man on pole.
Max, your first ever pole at this circuit, considering you've had 34 now in total. That seems quite a funny stat. How will you convert that into another win today?
Yeah, I mean, it will all depend on the race pace of the car, but normally that should be our strong point. So hopefully it will be the same today, that we can look after our tires. But around here it's never straightforward, you know, it's a street circuit, a lot of things can happen, safety cars as well, so just need to stay on it, you know, make sure that we make always the right decision when it matters.
Where do you think the biggest threat to the Red Bulls comes from today?
People trying different strategies around us. I think all the teams are quite close in that scenario, so it's very difficult to tell which team, but I think maybe Ferrari is probably a little bit ahead of the others. But yeah, we'll see.
And just finally, that pole lap yesterday was extraordinary. You've definitely got the car in exactly the right window, haven't you? Just reflect on that.
Yeah, yesterday was a good day. I think we improved the car a little bit more, so I was quite comfortable with the car, and that, of course, around here is very important. And yeah, hopefully, of course, I will I will have that same feeling to do today in the race.
That's Laura Winter speaking to Max Verstappen on pole. It's worrying, isn't he, when he says that he's got even more up his sleeve. I think we all look around and think, oh my goodness, can anyone have more up their sleeve? Anthony Joshua, fresh from his win last night in Saudi, is on the grid. He's alongside Pharrell as well. Plenty of celebs down there getting hot and sticky. Even Sergio Perez was just toweling himself down. It's a bit sweaty. In third place he starts. Let's talk about the man in 11th place, though. He's the one that's making all the headlines at the moment. He is a young man called Oliver Bearman. He starts P11, as we've said. His first race in Formula One, and he's just 18 years old. And from Essex, Harry.
Come on, big up the Essex boys.
There's a lot of Essex love in this room, isn't there?
There really is. We found out there's 2 Essex locals in this room originating. Look, it's brilliant to see Oliver Bearman get this opportunity. He was already here in Saudi Arabia for the Formula 2 race. Then, unfortunately, Carlos Sainz in that second Ferrari diagnosed with appendicitis, having to go for surgery. He's had that surgery. He's already back in the paddock and recovering today to watch this race. So fantastic. We wish him a really speedy recovery in time for Australia in a couple of weeks. But Bearman's got the call up, thrown in for FP3, first time in the Formula 1 car, in this current season's Formula 1 car, and put it on 11th on the grid, just outside the top 10. It was close. Tough ask for Bearman, but we said yesterday that this won't break his career, but it could well make it. And so far, so good for the young 18-year-old.
Just as an aside, Sainz put out a picture which was amazing of he alongside his father in the hospital, but actually there was another appendicitis issue with Carlos Sainz Sr., and he had to have an operation as well, and they replicated the photograph almost exactly with someone else on the phone. It was quite incredible. Have a look at that if you haven't. Oliver Bearman, a great chance, and Jack, you know exactly what that's like to get a great chance, not on a Ferrari but in an F1 car.
Ferrari, Williams, I mean,
much for muchness.
Basically the same in my mind. I think it's quite a not to get too mushy, but quite a beautiful thing that we get to see, because normally a promotion to a race seat happens over a long time. It's a lot of negotiations behind closed doors, a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and you don't really get to see all of that happen in front of you as a fan. We've got to see all of that happen in 24 hours for Oliver Bearman, a very young Brit, and into one of the most historic, prestigious, talked about teams in the world of cars, not just motorsport and F1. And the way he's handled himself so far has been absolutely brilliant. I think he was understandably a little bit disappointed with himself in quality, because being a racing driver, he's a perfectionist. He wanted a bit more. He knew he could have got a bit more out of those final runs in Q2, and probably just overdrove it a little bit. I think he was a bit tense because he knows the scale of the opportunity ahead of him. It's a chance to be and do something special. But he's got a whole race ahead of him today, and as we said, it's kind of all upside for him.
7 minutes to go until race start. He's the youngest Ferrari rookie with 18 years and 305 days under his belt. Let's hear from him.
The last time we were talking, we were at the F2 prize giving at the end of last season. You were on F2 pole in this weekend. You woke up and expected to be driving an F2 car. You're now making your F1 debut. Can you begin to put into words the emotions you have today?
Yeah, firstly, we're literally just passing by my F2 team.
Give them away.
That's nice. It was sad to leave them, especially after the qualifying, which was really good. But of course, an opportunity like this, you can't give up, and it's very rare that a reserve driver actually gets to drive. Firstly, I send my best wishes to Carlos, and I know he's recovering a lot, but I hope to make the best of this opportunity.
Starting P11, just so close to Q3. What's the mindset coming in on a track where we are likely to see safety car, we're likely to see a bit of chaos?
Yeah, historically it's been a really busy race. I think the goal would be just to keep my nose clean and gain experience. You know, it's a long race. I just want to be there at the end, get the laps, get the experience, and enjoy it as well. Can you put into words the step up from driving this track in an F2 car to getting into F1 machinery? Yeah, I think it was about 14 seconds. It's incredible, the difference, you know. The F1 car just does exactly what you want it to. And you have the guys coaching you live, which is also pretty awesome. Qualifying, I struggled, I think, to find the limit. But it's incredible to drive these cars on low fuel, max attack. It was really good fun.
And what's it like working alongside Charles Leclerc as well, a Grand Prix winner, one of the best men over one lap on the grid as well?
Yeah, he gave me a lot of input as well to help me, which was really, really useful and really kind as well. Yeah, he's fantastic, and it's been great to learn from him, even if it's only been 2 sessions. But I'll aim to take that into the future as well.
And I think the answer is going to be points, but what is the maximum return for you today, do you think?
I would be happy with points, but of course I'm just looking at my kind of personal performance. I just want to have a good race, a good pace, no mistakes, and build it up cleanly. Points would be a bonus.
Thank you, Ollie. It's brilliant to see you here.
Thank you very much.
The very best of luck.
That's Laura Winter with Oliver Behrman. What does he feel like, Jack, at the moment? You can't obviously know him, but you know what it's like to be under the pressure of starting your first Formula One race.
I think at the moment, in the middle of the race weekend for him, he's just in the flow of everything at the moment. There's so much on your plate as a driver, so many meetings, so much chatter going on with your engineers, your team, your management, that you don't have a lot of time to sit back and think about it. The only moment that you really have where it's a bit of calm and quiet is during the national anthem, when all the drivers stand at the front of the grid, and then you're straight back into race mode. So he's going to be fully focused, I'm sure, and he was quite keeping expectations sensible there, but I'm sure that he wants a lot out of this.
Okay, if we just have a little look at let's have a little look at the contenders trying to take on Verstappen. Ruth, as a strategist, help us, guide us. What are they going to do? How can they try and stop Verstappen winning?
Well, the reality is they need to decide if they want to try to stop Verstappen winning or bank those points and try and come as high as they possibly can, given it's race 2 and they're also racing each other.
Which would you do?
Right now depends who I am, but probably try and go for P2.
Okay. So if you are, let's say, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari alongside Verstappen, there's braking points about 148 metres. How do you try and outsmart him? What are the opportunities? I'll ask Ruth and then Jack.
Well, first off, you're on the dirty side of the grid, so the key is to make sure that you go through turn 1 ahead of Perez. So honestly, the first thing you need to think about is defence, making sure in that P2 position you're not losing a position to a car that is faster than you in race pace, as Charles has a real opportunity to keep Checo behind if he can get him after lap 1.
Yeah, I mean, from the driver's point of view, I'd echo that final statement that it's really about gaining that on-track superiority with the track position, especially in the first lap here, because your only chance to overtake early on in the lap is the first corner. After that, the drivers are going to settle into single file fairly quickly because of the high-speed nature of the rest of Sector 1. So for someone like Leclerc, he knows that he really has to get that first braking point right and maximise his position.
Harry, to me, this is the most like a computer game that you can get when you're out there, 27 corners. Just talk to us about the circuit.
Just over 6.1 kilometres, 27 turns, the most of any on the calendar, 16 to the left, 11 to the right. You're on full throttle for well over 70% of this lap. Second longest track on the calendar. Many describe it as a cross between Spa and Monaco. Ultra high speed, narrow strip of asphalt in between the barriers. Drivers rushing through at over 250 kilometres an hour at some of the corners, getting up to 300. It's fast, it's furious, there's not much runoff. The walls are very close.
Yeah, it's a real challenge, isn't it, for the drivers? We've just got the grid in with all of the tyres. Ruth, can you talk us through that?
Well, for the first time ever at Jeddah, we have no cars starting on the hard compound tyre. We have 18 cars on the medium. The last 3 races we've had 16, and we have Valtteri Bottas in P16 on the soft, and our lovely rookie Oliver Behrman on the soft. Now that soft tyre is going to give them an advantage off the start line. Ferrari have chosen that to really help Oliver on that lap 1. DRS is now activated 1 lap after the start, so that should help him maintain position or even make positions at the start.
Okay, we will get more from you as we go through the race, Jack, as well. But Harry, Benjamin, over to you to talk us through the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Well, off the coast of the Red Sea lies this Jeddah Corniche circuit. 27 turns, the second longest track on the F1 calendar. Plays host to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Under the lights, the sun has set, the floodlights have come on, and 20 cars are about to go racing as we get set for the formation lap. strategy is going to be key across this race. There is a 100% chance of a safety car from the 3 races that have been held here, won by Hamilton, then Verstappen, then Perez. Are we going to get a different winner, or is this Verstappen's to lose? It's coming up to 5 o'clock in the UK, 8 o'clock in Saudi Arabia. It's time for the Grand Prix. Well, it's his 34th career pole position. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull on pole. Alongside him on the front row is the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez is third, Fernando Alonso fourth, and the McLaren of Oscar Piastri round out the top 5. Then it's Lando Norris in 6th, ahead of the 2 Mercedes of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in 8th. Yuki Tsunoda is 9th in the RB, and Lance Stroll in the other Aston Martin rounds out the top 10. Ahead of his debut Formula 1 race, Oliver Behrman starts 11th in the Ferrari in front of the Williams of Alex Albon. The Haas of Kevin Magnussen is 13th in front of the RB of Daniel Ricciardo. Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas rounds out the top 15. Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber is 16th, ahead of Esteban Ocon in the Alpine 17th. Gasly is 18th, Logan Sargent in the Williams is 19th, and Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber 20th and last on the grid. Well, formation lap then well and truly underway as the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu makes his way down through turns 1 and 2 in that fluoro green livery. And actually, Jack, I think it's worth a mention just on the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu and the team doing a phenomenal job to get that car repaired after his big crash in FP3. Did get out in qualifying, and it was 5 seconds he missed the flag by, but crucial to see that car back up and running at least.
Yeah, painful for them, and actually even if they didn't get a lap in, it's quite important for them that they got the car out on the track, engine fired up, and effectively just check the systems, make sure everything's gone back as it should. You know, everything happened in such a rush that it would have been a relief to see that car up and running. So really good job from the mechanics, and even though they didn't get the lap that they wanted out of qualifying, he's in the race.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, let's run you through how the championship order looks ahead of the second race of the season. Max Verstappen leads the way, 26 points to his name, 8 clear of his teammate Sergio Perez. Then it's Carlos Sainz in third. Of course, Carlos Sainz not participating in this Grand Prix. He had surgery yesterday for his appendicitis. Already back at the track today and watching on. Third in the championship, but won't pick up any points though today. Charles Leclerc is fourth in front of George Russell, who rounds out the top 5. Over in the Constructors' Championship, it's Red Bull who lead the way, 44 points to their name, 17 clear ahead of Ferrari. Then it's Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, the top 5, and the rest all yet to get off the mark. Sauber, Haas, RB, Williams and Alpine make up the remainder of the top 10.
Just looking at the track map here, and Gasly is well off the back of the field and holding up the cars behind him, and he's come on the radio and said he has a gearbox problem.
Yeah, there's a big gap between Gasly and Ocon. He's got a gearbox problem. Ruth, good time to bring you in on this. On the pit wall, what's going through your mind now? There's a potential problem for one of the cars as we're forming up on the grid.
Well, that car needs to be back in position by the time we cross that safety line, otherwise he'll have to dive into the pit lane.
Okay, well, it's all serious faces on the pit wall. The CEO of McLaren, Zak Brown, watches on. Max Verstappen is already in position on the front row. Alongside him is the scarlet red Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. The lights illuminate this Jeddah Corniche circuit just on the waterfront area next to the Red Sea. This is the sound of Pierre Gasly reporting those gearbox issues. He hasn't come into the pits. He's going to take up his position on the grid, and he will be in 18th spot as we await the final row, which will have the Williams of Logan Sargent and the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu. As we await for the lights to come on, the green flag flies at the back of the pack. We're almost ready to go racing. Max Verstappen on pole, Charles Leclerc alongside. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Jeddah. Good start from Verstappen, comes straight across to defend from Leclerc. Leclerc has to back out of it. Perez round the outside of Leclerc. That becomes the inside into turn 2. Perez squeezes Leclerc almost to the wall, just avoids the Ferrari. Perez and Leclerc. It's a drag race down to turn 4. Leclerc wins out through the left-hander. Il Concertina's up. The other Ferrari of Behrman has made a decent start. He's ahead of one of the Haas passes, runs a little bit wide, but it's Verstappen who leads in this first part of the lap.
Piastri and Alonso having a great ding-dong just behind as well. Similar things, side-by-side stuff through most of Sector 1. It is Alonso who's regained that position back over the McLaren of Piastri now, and a little bit of a gap to the second papaya car of Norris behind.
Yeah, sparks flying as they make their way through the left-hander of turn 13. This is the sound of Oliver Behrman, who started in 11th, currently trying to get into the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda in the RB is in front of him. Tsunoda falling down from 9th position in his starting grid. Behrman also having to defend from Kevin Magnussen in the Haas behind. It's Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Alonso, Piastri, the top 5. Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, Tsunoda, the top 10. But Behrman on that soft compound tyre is chasing, trying to score in his first Formula 1 race. But it's early stages, one of the longest laps on the calendar. We're not even finished lap 1 yet, as Pierre Gasly is told he has to retire the car.
Yep, Behrman getting a great run out of turn 22 there. He's right on the back of Tsunoda. No DRS yet, of course, but he's got a great slipstream. Going to the outside on the last corner, not quite alongside, but he's going to get a good run out onto the long main straight. They both have a kick of wheel spin as they go on the power. Tsunoda making sure that he has the toe of the car in front of him to get that extra straight line speed.
And further up, there's a battle for 4th. Alonso defending from Piastri, but Piastri makes his way round the outside and will get the move done through turns 1 and 2. Piastri up into 4th as Alonso comes down into 5th. Then it's Norris, Russell and Hamilton, and Behrman has been trying still to get past Tsunoda. He's trying to get the move done, but he just can't find a way past the Japanese driver as they make their way once again round this circuit through lap 2. And Behrman, in trying to get past Tsunoda, has allowed Magnussen to climb right under his rear wing.
Yeah, the Dane trying to scare the young Brit out of that position, but Behrman wasn't having it, and there's a little bit of a gap now forming between the cars as they settle down into the high-speed sections of this track. But Behrman doing a very good job of protecting his front wing. It all seemed to crunch up into turn 1 there as everyone got a toe on each other in the midfield. It's a great place to lose a front wing end plate, but protecting his car well there.
Lap 2 of 50 of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It's Max Verstappen away from pole, 1.2 seconds clear in the lead. Charles Leclerc is second, then it's Perez, Piastri, Alonso the top 5, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, Tsunoda the top 10, Behrman, Magnussen, Albon, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, who's fallen down to 15th in the RB, ahead of Ocon in the Alpine. Bottas, the other driver on the soft compound tyres. Bottas started 16th, he's actually lost a position, down into 17th in front of Sargent. Joe is 19th, and Gasly, with issues in that Alpine, did take the start despite reporting those issues on the formation lap, but has been called into the pits to retire. 19 drivers left in this race as we start lap 3, and the drag reduction system, the DRS, open now this year, activated after 1 lap. The rear wing flap flies open in the designated zones, gives you more top speed down the straights, and then shuts under braking. No moves being done into turn 1, although Russell was having a little look at the back of Norris as we get another look, Jack, at the race start.
Yeah, it was a good start for Verstappen. He went straight to the inside to cover it anyway, just in case, and that actually boxed Leclerc in and gave Perez the opportunity to sweep around the outside. Got very tight between the McLaren of Norris, Russell and Hamilton further back as well, going 3 wide into turn 1. Leclerc and Perez battling into turn 4, getting very close to touching as Leclerc fought to maintain that position. Very crucial move there to stay ahead of the faster Red Bull.
Behrman did actually have to cut the first chicane. Here's Russell.
Jump start, Norris.
Yeah, there was a little twitch from the McLaren, but that's enough. Any kind of movement while the red lights are on, that could be a penalty. They're definitely going to look into that, and they actually have sensors in the grid boxes to detect any kind of movement, so that could be a slam dunk penalty. We're on board with him now, and yeah, he moves almost half a metre before the lights go out.
And that usually is a slam dunk penalty. We'll wait for that to come up on our race control screens. Also worth noting that before the lights went out, there was an incident in the pit lane involving Tsunoda and Norris. The RB let out just in front of the McLaren. Norris had to slam on the brakes, an unsafe release. That will be under investigation. Meanwhile, though, battle for second on the road. Perez to the inside of turn 1 on Leclerc, makes the move. Perez in the Red Bull, up into second. Leclerc down to third. Nice move from Perez, utilising the DRS well, placing that Red Bull in the right part of the track, and now he can try and close that 2-second gap to his teammate Verstappen, who leads.
It was a strong move from Perez, but he capitalised on Leclerc hesitating as to whether or not to fully defend the position. He moved over to the middle of the track on the straight, but he didn't close the door completely, and Perez didn't need a second invitation. He took it, and he was up the inside, and that was all she wrote. We're on board with him now. Quite a gap to the Ferrari as he comes across the start-finish line, but the closing speed is big. Perhaps he caught Leclerc by surprise. And yeah, Leclerc leaving a couple of cars widths to the inside. Perez just getting the job finished on the brakes.
Do you think Leclerc was really fighting that one, though?
I don't know. You would think he would want to maintain the track position, but maybe he doesn't want to burn up his tyres fighting that fast to Red Bull.
Well, it is now Verstappen, Perez, I should say, 2.3 seconds behind Leclerc, Piastri, Alonso, the top 5, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, Tsunoda, the top 10. Then comes Behrman, Magnussen, Albon, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo, the top 15, Ocon, Bottas, Sargent and Zhou, the 19 drivers that remain in this race, with Pierre Gasly in the Alpine having to retire, the first retirement of the 2024 season. Here's Behrman in 11th.
And you're doing well, Ollie, you're doing well. We are faster than the cars in front.
It's about trying to find that overtaking opportunity, isn't it? Behrman told on the radio, doing well. He's faster than the cars in front of him, Tsunoda and Stroll. But at the moment, with DRS open as he makes his way down the straight, it's Tsunoda who is all over the back of Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, heading down into turns 1 and 2. Not close enough on that occasion for the Japanese driver.
Yeah, Stroll proving to be a little bit of a cork in the bottle. We're starting to see gaps open up through the field. Stroll leaving about 3 seconds to the 8th place Mercedes of Hamilton. And you've got 4 or 5 cars behind him, all bottled up in a DRS train. Behrman, one of them, stuck behind Tsunoda. The DRS worth a lot of time around this circuit as well, 7/10 a lap. And if you lose that DRS, as Stroll has done now, you become somewhat of a sitting duck.
Well, starts to open up a few of the gaps out there at the moment. Alonso having tried to defend 4th place from Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, conceded that position, but Norris isn't really able to close in on this occasion. Also in the commentary box with us is Formula 1 strategist Ruth Buscombe. Ruth, on Oliver Behrman, he's on that soft compound tyre, obviously. He's in 11th. He's been told he's quicker. What's going on the pit wall now at Ferrari to manage his race? Because the overtaking manoeuvres around this track are so difficult.
Well, on the Ferrari pit wall, they'll have a load of numbers from P2 this week, and they'll also have information from Charles's soft stint last year, where actually he did a 16-lap stint faster than his teammate Sainz on the medium tyre, to know just how much energy, i.e. just how much he can fight Stroll without compromising the rest of his race. So they will manage him using the numbers they have on the pit wall.
Well, and having those from last year as well to hand, great insight into what is going on the Ferrari pit wall. That was the voice of Formula 1 strategist Ruth Buscombe, alongside myself. Harry Benjamin is also the former Williams F1 driver, Jack Aitken. This is lap 6 of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, lap 6 of 50, and we're at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, just on the waterfront area next to the Red Sea. 6.1 kilometres, 27 turns, 16 to the left, 11 to the right. There's not much runoff. It's like a roller coaster ride. Cling on for dear life, and so far there haven't been too many incidents, certainly not in lap 1. Pierre Gasly is the only retiree of this race so far in the Alpine with suspected gearbox issues. Did make the start of this race, but was then called to come into the pits to retire. So 19 drivers remain in this Grand Prix, and it's Verstappen, the reigning champion, who has the lead by 2.5 seconds from his teammate Sergio Perez. Charles Leclerc is 3rd, Piastri, Alonso the top 5, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Stroll, Tsunoda the top 10, and they are your point scorers. Behrman still within touching distance of a point and the top 10. He just needs to find a way past Yuki Tsunoda, but it's Stroll into the wall coming through turn 24. He goes straight on and into the wall, and that's going to be an immediate safety car. 100% probability around this track. We were waiting for it to happen, and it's Lance Stroll who's the victim. Let's hear what he has to say. He says he's okay. The yellow flag comes out straight away, but there's a bit of front wing on the racing line as well. Stroll is wedged into the Tech Pro barrier, and he removes the headrest as he begins to get out of that Aston Martin. Stroll slides out of this race from 9th position in this race. And now, what happens in the rest of this field? Will we get a sudden flurry of pit stops? Safety car still yet to be called at the moment. We've got the yellow flags out, so no overtaking in sector 2 and 3. But we've only seen the overhead shot of Stroll going into the wall. So we'll try and get another look at it and tell you exactly what happened. But Jack, the safety car, is now out.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see what happened there, because it looked like he just carried straight on into the wall. You can see the tyre marks. There's no spin. He may have just clipped that inside wall, which we've seen happen a couple of times already this weekend, broken the suspension on that front left wheel and sent him straight into the runoff area. But yeah, now this is going to be a very interesting time for the teams and what they decide to do for that one stop potentially in this race.
Well, Stroll walks away then, and Ruth, Oliver Behrman is told by Ferrari to box. Actually, just before we come to you, Ruth, let's just see what happened with Stroll. Comes into the left-hander. You're absolutely right, Jack. The front left clips the wall and straight on into the wall for Stroll.
Yeah, that was a nasty hit. You could hear it on the onboard footage, but just clipped the wall, and it wasn't a big hit initially, just enough to break that track rod that controls the front left steering, and it immediately swapped to turning to the right and effectively rendered the Aston Martin a rudderless ship, and Stroll couldn't do anything there except hold on to the brakes and brace for impact.
So Stroll now out of this race, and the first pit stop's being called, and Ruth Behrman then told to box by Ferrari.
Yes,
and Red Bull and Perez.
So under a safety car, first thing you need to establish is check it's not going to go to a red flag. That happened when Mick Schumacher crashed actually similar location, turned 22 back in 21. Now we know that the hard can get to the end physically. Piastri did 48 laps last year on that hard tyre, which is why there's this flurry of stops for cars that are going to be able to change and now theoretically get to the end.
Well, it's a busy pit lane. The Red Bulls are double stacking. Leclerc has had to wait an age to get let out as he has to let the Aston Martin and the McLaren come through in the fast lane. Alonso's in the pits. Piastri comes into the pits. So does Alonso, Russell, Tsunoda, Behrman, Magnussen, Albon. They're all coming in. Norris hasn't, though. He's maintained the lead. Verstappen came in first, with Perez just easing off to allow him enough time to double stack. So the Red Bulls deciding to call both of their drivers in at the same time. You remember, was it a couple of years ago as well, where Perez was also a victim of the safety car and lost the lead of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix when they called him in at just the wrong time, and the safety car then came out as they feed out then of the pit lane. Lap 8 of 50 after a safety car has been called for the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll finding the wall. The Canadian is out of the car and said he was okay. We've seen him walking away. That has led to a flurry of pit stops. Lando Norris and the McLaren, though, electing to stay out, and everybody who has come into the pits has gone onto the hard compounded tyre, Ruth.
Yes, so under a safety car, you normally have 2 laps where you can pit. So teammates that are close together have the choice of trying to stay out for 1 lap, follow the delta as well as they can, and then pit their second car on the second time round if they can do it before they catch the safety car. So we may still see some more stops at the end of this lap.
So let's see if Norris decides to come in at the end of this one as well. He is effectively the leader now. Verstappen emerged second after the pit stops, Jack.
But of course, now that they're packing up behind the safety car roof, it's going to be a huge loss for Norris and Hamilton if they do choose to do that. Is there any option for them to stay out and try something other than pitting now with the rest of the field and dropping right to the back of that train?
No, once you've caught the safety car, that's it. So you'll drop right to the back because your relative loss means you'll go right to the very back of the pack.
Could they stay out on this tyre?
Yes, so the medium tyre can last a good amount of distance. It's just where do you go from there?
Hit the wall.
Okay, can you bring it back, Lance?
No, I'm in the wall.
I copy that.
That was Lance Stroll being told, saying that he hit the wall, being asked if he could bring it back, and saying pretty bluntly that he couldn't. Aston Martin well and truly wedged into the tech prep.
Let me just pick up the pieces, mate, and I'll see what I can do. Poor guy. It's the last thing you want is your engineer effectively making fun of you. But yeah, he was struggling, wasn't he? Jokes aside, like we said, he'd been the cork in the bottle for that midfield pack, creating a bit of a DRS train behind him, and sometimes you just try and extract a bit more pace and it can lead to accidents like that. Just getting an onboard replay of Alonso in pit lane. Here's his radio.
Oh, I nearly crashed with a Red Bull. So close.
Alonso saying he nearly crashed with the Red Bull in the pit lane. It was tight for Perez being released.
It's that classic Alonsoism of there's definitely some truth to it, but he's egging it up a bit and being a bit of an actor to try and get the FIA's attention because he wants a penalty for that Red Bull, of course. So he slammed on the brakes, big dramatic lock-up and a dramatic radio message to go along with it.
If anyone knows how to play the game, it's Fernando Alonso, isn't it? As the stricken Aston Martin is hinched away by the recovery vehicles. Lando Norris didn't come into the pits then. He did have one less set of softs in qualifying, hoping that would be repaid in the race. but with the safety car, he's now got to stay out effectively and hold on. Really?
Yeah, so last year we saw Lewis do a 34-lap stint on that medium tyre as he opted out of his reverse with the safety car. So you can go deep into the race. It's just how much time will he lose defending against the cars behind him. Hamilton is in the same situation. He's also stayed out. So these cars are effectively now going to be running a reverse strategy using that medium tyre. It's cooler. You could theoretically make a medium soft work.
As a strategist on the pit wall, when you're making those calls, how terrifying can it be, or are you just dead cool, dead calm?
You will have decided your appetite for risk going into this, so all teams will have a plan. If there is a safety car at that critical moment, that is where the safety car window either opens or closes, and you often see teammates split. So Piastri did take to stop, and then Lando did the opposite.
So there's no going back once you've committed to the race.
You are committed now.
Oh, scary stuff. And just getting another look at Charles Leclerc's lengthy stop. They changed all the tyres, but he just had to be held while the Aston Martin and McLaren were both coming through for their stops.
They looked like they were quite conservative with the release there. I mean, obviously we don't want anyone to be too dangerous with their release, but Ferrari playing it very safe and even leaving a bit of a gap to the cars that left after Leclerc.
Well, safety car coming to an end then. Lando Norris leads. He hasn't pitted. Neither has Lewis Hamilton. Neither has Nico Hülkenberg.
Okay, Lando. So ultimately, the target remains as target +5. But we still kind of need to do a stint 1 approach, but probably not immediately. We need to let the tyres come in a bit.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to let the tyres come in. You've got to understand that.
Joe Guanyu is the other driver who hasn't come into the pits. And that was Lando Norris. Can you translate that for us, Ruth?
So he's talking to his race engineer, Will Joseph, who's saying, can you look after the tyres? And he's saying, mate, I've got Max Verstappen behind me. No.
Well, he has got him behind him, and now the safety car has pulled in as they make their way around the final corner. He hasn't gone just yet, Norris, weaving left, then weaving right, backing up the pack. It is up to when Lando Norris wants to go, and he puts his foot to the floor just as the pit lane entry comes, and he floors it down the main straight. Lap 10 of 50, and we are back underway, and it's Piastri and Leclerc going toe-to-toe down into turn 1. Piastri on the outside, Leclerc getting the move done. Leclerc up to 5th, Norris holds on to the lead for the time being in front of Verstappen. Then comes Hamilton, Perez 4th, Leclerc getting through on Piastri for 5th and 6th. Alonso is 7th. Then comes Hülkenberg and Russell fighting as they make their way through turns 4.
Yep, Behrman did a brilliant move on Tsunoda, caught him by surprise in the braking zone of turn 1 a little bit, so he's moved up into P11, then streaming through turn 11 now as the cars separate a bit, going single file. Lando Norris doing a good job to get a bit of a jump on the field, despite what his strategist was pleading with him there, of bring the tyres in gently. Well, this is the balance that he has to play now. He's got to try and take care of those tyres, knowing that any damage he does now is just going to be exponentially more difficult for him later in the stint. But he has to keep track position as well. It's so crucial.
And of course there is the likelihood of another safety car in this race, Ruth.
Yeah, so that's what they're doing now. They're playing the long game, so either with traffic or with a later incident that could either bring out safety cars, VSEs or red flags. The pendulum could swing back in those 4 cars' favour, but these laps are absolutely crucial. A good rule of thumb is if you have to pit within the 10 laps after a safety car, you made the wrong decision.
Well, we'll see how that one unfolds. I'm loving this. That's the voice of the Formula 1 strategist Ruth Buscombe alongside me, Harry Benjamin, as the former Formula 1 driver, Jack Aiken. Lando Norris then leads this race, having not pitted under safety car in the McLaren. He heads the field. Max Verstappen, though, who did pit, moved on to the hard compounder tyre, is right behind him in 2nd. Hamilton, who didn't pit, is in 3rd. Perez 4th. Leclerc ahead of Piastri. That's the top 6. Then comes Alonso, Hülkenberg, Russell and Joe, the top 10. Oliver Behrman making his Formula 1 debut this weekend in the Ferrari in place of the unwell Carlos Sainz is 11th. Just had a bit of a lock-up coming through turns 1 and 2. He's made that lovely move on Tsunoda on the safety car restart and now chasing down Joe Guanyu. But on that safety car restart, it got very tight going through turns 1 and 2, particularly for the Williams of Alex Albon further back in the pack. He's all the way down in 15th, getting very close and indeed touching the Haas of Magnussen.
What is he doing?
Yeah, it's just a bit of a classic crunch point going into turn 4 there. The track naturally kinks to the right before going left into the actual corner. And Magnussen, just trying to follow the racing line, squeezed Albon too much. Now going on board with Oliver Behrman as we see his move for P11. He does a beautiful dummy on Tsunoda going into turn 1. Stays to the outside and then at the last minute switches over to the inside, outbrakes him. very nice and clean.
Oliver Bearman using this race to showcase why he is deserving of a Formula One drive in 2025. Up into 11th for the time being, and now focusing on Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber ahead. Race control. Incident in the pit lane involving Perez and Alonso under investigation. That unsafe release that we heard Alonso on the radio about, and that potential jump start for Lando Norris. Race control described it as an incorrect starting location. It's been noted for now, Jack.
So when I said earlier that a slam dunk penalty, actually I'm going to correct myself. Sometimes it's an oddity of the sensors that you have here. They don't always record movement in the same way that the eye does, and what might have happened is that it just recorded Norris being in a place that he shouldn't have been as he moved that half a metre or whatever it was, rather than it actually being a jump start in the sensor's eyes. So it'll be interesting to see if anything comes of that. He might be really lucky and get away with that.
Well, it's interesting though, last year Fernando Alonso got a penalty for lining up, wasn't a jump start, but lining up in the incorrect position in his grid spot, and got a penalty. So I think it was 5 seconds at the time, wasn't it? So we'll see if that one comes back and is repeated with Lando Norris, who does currently lead this race. Verstappen with the fastest lap on the hard compounded tyre, just behind him, keeping within a second, within that DRS range as they make their way down towards turn 27 into the final sector of this lap. Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, the top five. Piastri, Alonso, Hülkenberg, who was one of the drivers not to pit, up to 8th. Russell 9th. Zhou also didn't pit, up to 10th.
Well, he didn't give me enough space, so obviously he just was curious about it.
Yeah, so he got squeezed into the wall.
So Albon actually got a bit of damage from that by the looks of it. Magnussen looked like he walked away from that one fairly well. Up front though, on the main straight with DRS, it's an easy move for Max Verstappen, who moves to the inside under braking and takes the lead again for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Verstappen makes the move on Norris as Perez makes the move on Hamilton. The two Red Bulls both gaining a position. Verstappen now leads, Perez up to 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Leclerc the top 5.
Yeah, it's going to be crucial for Charles Leclerc to try and follow Perez through quickly now, because he's got that roadblock of Hamilton, who's not been as quick as Leclerc anyway. Add into that he's on an older medium tyre, and yeah, the gap to Perez is going to balloon if Leclerc can't jump him quickly. Race control have now corrected that earlier statement. They are treating the Norris incident as a jump start, not as an incorrect starting position. Still no investigation, but it's been noted.
Lap 13 of 50. Verstappen now, as soon as he's taken the lead, already 1.3, nearly 1.4 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Just coming back to that Alex Albon, Kevin Magnussen incident, how would you read that? Is that a racing incident if you took your racing driver hat off?
For me, it could be a penalty for Magnussen. I would certainly apportion blame on him. The fact was, Albon was well alongside on the outside. Even if the nature of the track made it a little bit more tricky with the racing line naturally coming to the right, which is where Magnussen was going, you have to leave space for the other car, always.
This is the sound now of Charles Leclerc making his way through the final corner, the left-hander, turn 27. He's chasing Lewis Hamilton, who didn't pit under safety car, stayed out on that medium compounded tyre. Leclerc on the hard behind him within half a second, onto the brakes through turns 1 and 2, down through the gears and immediately back under the power. I think further back as well, Russell has just made a move on Hülkenberg as Bearman gets through on Zhou in the other Ferrari. Bearman up into the top 10 now with a nice move down through turn 1 and 2, making use of the DRS. Bearman not afraid to get his elbows out in his first run in that Ferrari.
Yeah, and his next target is another potentially easy picking. It's Hülkenberg in the Haas, again on the older medium tyre. He hasn't pitted. And Bearman breaking into the points, and his one stop in theory done. So it's looking pretty good for points for the young Brit. Here's Piastri.
Hamilton ahead, struggling on mediums from the start.
So that's Piastri's radio being told about Hamilton. Ruth, if Hamilton's been struggling on the mediums from the start, how much longer do you think he can go?
Well, at this point, it's a case of damage limitation. On the pit wall, they'll be trying to decide how much time he's actually losing, because it's time, not positions, that he's racing for right now. If he pits at this moment, he's going to go right to the back of the race to track, and he'll lose everything. So it really will be a case of trying to balance how far he can get into the race before he needs to pit. He's losing too much time.
Okay, thank you very much. And just an update as well from race control. No further action on that jump start from Lando Norris, who's not going to be penalised. And we get another look at the nice tidy move from Oliver Bearman, the 18-year-old British driver, down the inside of Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber to get up into the points and in 10th. Meanwhile, Bearman's teammate Charles Leclerc is trying to go around the outside of Lewis Hamilton into turns 1 and 2. They get oh so close. Leclerc just squeezes Hamilton and makes his way through. The 7-time champion has to concede the position. Leclerc up into 4th. Hamilton now down to 5th and struggling on that medium set of compound tyres. A reminder, Hamilton didn't pit under the safety car. Those around him did.
That was a brilliant move, and putting a lot of faith on his competitor was Charles Leclerc. You know, Hamilton, if you're going to trust someone to keep it out of your side pod, he's a fairly good bet, and they did manage to keep it very clean. That was great racing, and we have had a decision from the stewards on Lando Norris in that jump start. He's been exonerated, no penalty, so he's gotten away with it, which I think he's a very lucky boy to do so.
Yeah, any chance of plan B, because, I mean, they are in another league. Copy, we're looking.
When Fernando Alonso is asking for plan B, you know there might be something worrying. That's the Spaniard down in 7th in the Aston Martin. Let's head down to Jenny Gao. Oh, sorry, Jenny, I thought you... oh, sorry, Ruth. I meant Ruth. Lap 15 of 50. Verstappen leads. Ruth.
Right, so now we've got a bit of a strategy battle going on. We've got 4 cars that are not yet pitted, and at the moment things don't look great for those 4 cars, because the guys that pitted the first safety car, they've gained 20 seconds the pit stop time for free. So these cars now need either a VSC, a safety car, or a red flag really to get back into the game with the amount of time they're losing in traffic. Now, last year we didn't have a VSC, but the previous 2 races we had a VSC in that later window, 1 in the 22 race, and we actually had 4 in the 2021 race. So there is still a possibility, although the more time you lose now, the worse it can get.
Okay, it's lap 16 of 50. Verstappen leads Norris, leads Perez in 3rd. Let's head to Jenny Gao.
Yes, Perez has got a 5-second time penalty for that unsafe release from the pit, so that's been issued. There's also a 10-second time penalty for car 20, that's Magnussen in the Haas, for causing a collision.
Thank you very much, Jenny. So, Jack, you were right. It was a penalty coming Magnussen's way for that incident with Alex Albon that just squeezed Albon right into the wall, and the tyre driver not happy on the radio, and it appears the stewards agree with Albon. Well, here's Hamilton first.
They're killing us at high speed. Yeah, copy Lewis. GPS agrees.
Hamilton there, they're killing us in the high speed. Hamilton behind Leclerc and just in front of Piastri. So racing the Ferrari and the McLarens, but he's about 9 tenths behind the Ferrari. But Piastri is within half a second of him and closing.
He's hunting, yeah. It's coming into the final corner now, the 2 cars, and Piastri's setting him up with a good exit. He's well in DRS range, and it's going to be potentially a move into turn 1 here if he can get enough of the extra boost from the DRS. And it's going to be to the inside for Piastri. He looks there, he goes to the outside. Hamilton defends, trying to go all the way around the outside. Ooh. And Hamilton just gives him a bit of a hip check, sends him across the runoff. Piastri is going to give the place back. He doesn't want to risk a penalty.
Yeah, Piastri does give that position back. They did touch wheel-to-wheel contact between Piastri and the McLaren and Hamilton in the Mercedes. Hamilton holds out in front for the time being and 5th. Piastri 6th, but the writing appears to be on the wall for Hamilton, who is, it's a waiting game for when Piastri can make his way through. This is the battle for 5th and 6th. They're kind of in no man's land a little bit because Alonso is a couple of seconds behind them. Then comes Russell in 8th, Hulkenberg and Bearman at the top 10. We're getting another look at it now, and it all started on the main straight. Piastri using the DRS, shifted to the right to go around the outside of Hamilton quite last minute, and maybe there wasn't contact. It was just Piastri decided to bail out and cut the corner last minute.
Yeah, well, he saw Hamilton going to cover the inside and made that split-second decision to go to the outside instead. But unlike Leclerc, he wasn't able to get his front axle ahead of Hamilton's and earn that space on the outside. So Hamilton showed him the door. I don't think there was contact, you're right, Harry, so he just managed to steer out of it. But now we're looking at the other battle with the McLarens. It's Perez on the back of Norris.
It Here comes Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull, the man who has set pole position here on the last 2 occasions, won around these streets last time around, and is currently looking to make a move for second place on Lando Norris. With the aid of DRS, the Red Bull moves to the inside, and before he even gets into the braking zone, the Mexican driver is through on the Brit. Perez up into second, Norris down to third.
Yeah, he wasn't fighting that. He's thinking of the long game now, well into that conservation and damage limitation.
Behrman, sorry Aiken, I thought Behrman was going to try and dive down the inside of Nico Hülkenberg last minute. Would have been a brave move once again for Behrman. Wasn't quite close enough on that occasion, but Hülkenberg struggling for pace here. Another driver that stayed out on the mediums. Behrman coming for the German in the Haas.
Yeah, he was trying to intimidate Hülkenberg going into turn 1, just showing the nose a little bit, probably not really expecting to get the move done, but he'll be aware that as long as he's behind this Haas, he's just giving away time to those ahead of him. So he wants to clear him quite quickly, and conversely, Hülkenberg isn't going to want to lose too much time battling the Ferrari when he's in that less fortunate strategy for now.
Lap 18 of 50, Verstappen, Perez, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton the top 5, Piastri, Alonso, Russell, Hülkenberg, Behrman the top 10, Joe, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ocon, Albon the top 15, Sargent, Bottas, Ricciardo, the 18 drivers that remain in this race. Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin retiring due to a crash, and Pierre Gasly in the Alpine retiring due to a gearbox issue. Alongside me in the commentary box is the former Formula 1 driver Jack Aiken and Formula 1 race strategist Ruth Buscombe. Ruth, lap 18 now, how are you looking at this race from a strategy perspective?
Well, we've got 2 things going on now. We've got the 4 cars that did not pit under that safety car, that are kind of trying to minimise the amount of time they're losing being overtaken by the hard tyres. And then right at the very front for the podium, we have now a battle between Checo and Charles. Perez has that 5-second penalty, so he needed to make that overtake onto Norris, and now he needs to pull out a 5-second gap at least onto Charles. Otherwise, if he has that 5 second at the end of the race, or if there's a safety car and he needs to pit again, he's going to have to pay that 5-second penalty. At the moment, the gap is 4 seconds and opening, so that's what's going on at the front.
Okay, thank you very much. Good to get the oversight of that. Yeah, important to remember Perez and that 5-second penalty. He's had a few of those in the last couple of seasons that he's had to contend with, but normally the pace of the Red Bull tends to give him the advantage there. Behrman did briefly manage to get ahead of Hülkenberg, but I think Hülkenberg has managed to get back through in the battle for 9th. It all started in the run down to turns 1 and 2. Behrman trying down the inside, didn't have his DRS open actually compared to Hülkenberg. Oh no, it was the other way around. Did Hülkenberg start behind and had the DRS? We've seen the end of that move. We haven't seen how it fully unfolded, so I wonder if Behrman got past and then Hülkenberg using DRS got past again on the main straight. So that battle still running through. Hülkenberg 9th, Behrman 10th. I imagine it's because this is probably becoming a bit frustrating for Oliver Behrman, and team principal Fred Vasseur did say ahead of this weekend, don't be a hero. And right now he's running a decent race. He's kept it out of the wall nice and clean, showing good pace, and it's just got to pick them off one by one as best he can.
Don't be a hero. He's got a chance to be a Ferrari Formula 1 driver. Come on, Fred.
Were you not told to not be a hero ahead of your debut?
Definitely was told that, but I'm just telling you, as a driver, that's a hard sentence to hear. Anyway, we're on board with the man himself now. Jinx out to have a look again at Hülkenberg, but he's just not close enough, and Hülkenberg running a bit wide through turn 1. He's definitely struggling a bit on those mediums now, and Behrman possibly getting a bit frustrated. He needs to stay calm, needs to remember that he has got the advantage here, both in terms of pace with the car and the strategy, so he will get ahead of Hülkenberg at some point. It's just a question of when.
Yeah, let's see. It's still behind him at the moment on lap 20 of 50. Just to keep you up to date with what's happening further down the field as well. There's a nice battle developing. Oh, here's Behrman first.
He's so slow.
Oliver Behrman saying Hülkenberg is so slow to his engineer and a bit resigned to sit behind him at the moment. If he can sit again in the DRS and make the move stick and then pull away, he'll have a chance. He'll get another one shortly as they make their way around the closing stages of a lap around this Jeddah Corniche circuit. It is the battle for ninth. That is one of the closest on track at the moment between Hulkenberg and the Haas. Reminder, Hulkenberg didn't come into the pits when we had the safety car, so he's on old mediums now. Behrman on slightly newer hards. He did come into the pits. Behrman, who started this race down in 11th, picked up a couple of drivers already. Sonoda and Joe with some nice moves. Has a little look at Hulkenberg down into the left-hander of turn 27. He'll get the DRS then onto the main straight. Can Behrman finally pick off Nico Hulkenberg? The drag reduction system activates the rear wing. Flap flies open. Behrman to the inside of Hulkenberg into the braking zone. Gets in front of the German. Behrman in the Ferrari through on Hulkenberg in the Haas. Behrman up to 9th. Hulkenberg down to 10th.
Good work from Behrman there to get close enough through sector 2 to get the advantage of the DRS and the tow, but smart driving as well by Hulkenberg. When Behrman was struggling to get ahead of him, he was defending and holding that track position for all it was worth, and as soon as he saw that Behrman was going to pass him easily into turn 1, didn't fight it at all.
Yeah, it was a nice move with the aid of DRS for Behrman, so now he can get up into 9th and start trying to chase down George Russell in the Mercedes in front of him. It's Verstappen who leads, 6.1 seconds the gap to his teammate Sergio Perez. Lando Norris is 3rd, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton at the top 5, Piastri, Alonso, Russell, Behrman, Hulkenberg the top 10, Joe, Magnussen, Sonoda, Ocon, Albon the top 15, Sargent, Bottas and Ricciardo, the 18 drivers still left in this race. Worth touching under investigation once again is Kevin Magnussen leaving the track and gaining an advantage. I think he was in quite a nice tussle with Yuki Tsunoda, who was at one point half a second behind him. That was over the battle for 12th position, so we'll see if Magnussen gets another penalty for any misdemeanor. We haven't seen how that one happened. We are currently now focusing on the battle for 5th place. Lewis Hamilton, who's been struggling on this set of medium compound tyres, under pressure from the Australian Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. With the DRS, Piastri has to go round the outside. Hamilton defends. Hamilton maintains the positions that Mercedes perfectly to hold on to 5th place in front of the McLaren, and Piastri has to bide his time a little bit more.
Yeah, it's another frustrating situation similar to what Behrman had to deal with not long ago. Piastri in the pound seat with the better strategy at the moment anyway, but not quite got the pace to clear him, and it's that age-old story. He closes up through the start-finish line with the tow and the DRS, but as they get into sector 1, track position is king, and Hamilton is able to pull out a nice, healthy gap onto the back half of the track, where Piastri then closes up again using the straights and the tow.
Magnussen has added another 10-second time penalty to his collection for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, so more misery compounding for Haas. He's currently in 12th. Sonoda 4/10 behind him. Nice battle going on there, and Ocon in the Alpine is within range as well. The two Williams not having the best of days, the best of evenings I should say, under the lights at this Jeddah Corniche circuit just on the coast of the Red Sea, hosting the second round of the 2024 Formula 1 Championship. The two Williams 15th and 16th. Bottas is 17th, and misery for Daniel Ricciardo, who is 18th and last of the drivers. He's almost a second behind Valtteri Bottas. Ricciardo, who said his lack of pace in qualifying was an absolute mystery, half a second behind his teammate Sonoda, now currently right at the back of this field. I wonder if maybe he's had an issue perhaps or something in the pit lane when he came in for the safety car. We'll see if we can find out some more information on that, or is it just pure pace for the Aussie back for his full-time first full season since racing for McLaren. But he is 18th and last. No Stroll in the Aston Martin in this race after crashing into the wall. That brought out the safety car, and Pierre Gasly, with problems reported with his gearbox on the formation lap, took the start but then was immediately called in to retire in his Alpine. Two drivers then out of the race. 18 remain. Lap 23 of 50. Verstappen leads Perez, but one of the closest battles out on track is over 5th place. It's Hamilton on old medium compound tyres versus Piastri, the Australian in his second season for McLaren on slightly fresher hards, trying to hunt down the 7-time champion.
Yeah, the pace in that Mercedes with the medium tyre, and for Norris as well, it's a bit better than I would have expected. They seem to be holding on fairly well, because Leclerc is struggling to close up to the back of Norris as well. Again, Leclerc on the newer hard tyre having pitted, and Norris having stayed out, so they're not looking as bad as I might have expected, Ruth. Or is that kind of tracking with what you would have thought?
Well, the tyre itself isn't that degraded. It's a low degradation track. Yes, they're at a disadvantage, but the main problem is that they still have to pay that extra pit stop at some point unless they get a red flag that will save them. And that pit stop is going to drop you back 20 seconds. Even if you take it under a safety car or VSC, it's still going to cost you about 11 seconds. So looking at Lando and his gap to his teammate, he's actually only 5 seconds ahead of his teammate. So even with a VSC or a safety car and he pits, he'll still come out behind his own teammate.
Tussling still out on track though. Piastri versus Hamilton. Piastri really trying to be aggressive going down into turns 1 and 2, forced into a lockup by Hamilton, who was defending. Hamilton holds on to that position. This is the sound of Kevin Magnussen, and it's a replay perhaps of why he was given another 10-second time penalty. He was racing Yuki Tsunoda coming into the left-hander of 22.3.
That was actually a bit earlier in the lap during the first sector sweepers, and Tsunoda was pinning him up against the wall, daring him, saying, go on, if you really think you can do it, stick it up the inside on the dirty part of the track.
You don't dare Kevin Magnussen.
Well, exactly. He took the bait and went flying up the inside and off the track, and Tsunoda said, thank you very much, I'll stay on track and you'll get a penalty, and that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, they're still tussling. Tsunoda still behind Kevin Magnussen, but knowing that Kevin Magnussen effectively has a 20-second time penalty to deal with come the end of this race. Lap 25 of 50, and Verstappen continues to extend his lead at the top. He's just crossed the line and sets the fastest lap time of the race so far, 132.683. Perez is in second, Norris third, Leclerc fourth, and all fairly stable. Leclerc half a second though within the McLaren of Norris, so Norris under pressure from the Ferrari, and on the other foot Piastri still piling on the pressure in the other McLaren on the Mercedes of Hamilton, but he just doesn't have that last extra couple of tenths on the straight, just not getting the drive off of that final corner to get close enough to Hamilton to make that move stick.
Oscar, we see Hamilton moving under braking there. That was almost an accident. We're reporting it.
Well, I suppose you would do if you're McLaren, to report any kind of possible way you could get past Lewis Hamilton around this track. The fastest street circuit in the world. It's tight, it's twisty, there is not much runoff, and the walls are ever so close. If you pull off an overtaking manoeuvre, it's usually a pretty good one.
Yeah, you feel like a bit of a hero, I think, and the key is going to be trying to find those parts of the track where you can get a bit of clean air onto your front wing when you're in Piastri's shoes, going through these long sweeping corners where downforce is king. You have to choose a slightly different line to what you would normally. Avoid the rear of Hamilton's car and get that grip back in your car and try and be as close as you can, because if you just follow them, you get a bucket load of understeer, heat up your tyres, lose time, and it's all round bad news.
Magnussen proving now to be a bit of a cork in the bottle in this battle for 12th. He's got Tsunoda behind, Ocon as well, and that's brought the two Williams in as well, of Albon and Sargent. So this is a battle for 12 between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers. There's no points at stake, but there's certainly pride. There's points certainly at stake, and a podium between Lando Norris in the McLaren and Charles Leclerc, though, in the Ferrari through turns 1 and 2. Leclerc getting very close to the back of that McLaren. Can't find a way through on that occasion as he speeds through the quick left-hander of turn 4. Not an overtaking point coming, but he'll then get the aid of the next DRS zone approaching.
Now that he hasn't made it through into turn 1, it's a bit of a reset. Here's Norris.
Okay, mate, update for you. So looking to extend could become the Germany situation.
Okay, let me push now. I'm just starting to get a little bit trickier, but it's under control.
As Norris continues to act cool, calm and collected, keeping Leclerc within, Leclerc keeping Norris within his sight. It's kicking off in the midfield in the battle for 12. The Williams of Albon and the RB of Tsunoda and Ocon almost coming together through turns 1 and 2. That is how close it is, and Magnussen keeping them all at bay for the time being.
Magnussen is incredibly slow. I mean, we were on board with Tsunoda at one point and it really looked like he had a problem, but no, it just seems like that's the pace at the moment for Magnussen. Maybe suffering from some of his battles earlier on, getting a bit of dirt on the tyres that won't quite go away. Not sure, but he's really holding up these 4 cars behind him now.
Putting his car in all the right places, and sometimes the wrong places. Magnussen does have 2 10-second time penalties to contend with as well, but Tsunoda will want to be getting a move on and trying to catch up to Zhou Guanyu. Meanwhile, up front, The move for the final step on the podium on lap 27 of 50. Leclerc with DRS down the inside of Norris in the McLaren, finally gets past the British racer and up into third place. Leclerc third, Norris now down to fourth.
Yep, that was a nice, easy move again. Norris saw the writing on the wall when Leclerc was well within the DRS behind him going to the start-finish line, and just elected, you know what, it's not even worth going onto the dirty part of the track. He's going to come past me anyway. I'm going to let it happen and minimise the time loss. So back into time trial mode for Norris now, and Leclerc's going to set off after Perez.
Well, Leclerc certainly not skating away from Norris just yet. Meanwhile, that battle in the midfield rages on with Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ocon and the two Williamses. Jenny Gow's got news on Williams.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that Alexander Albon has that front wing damage from the collision with Kevin Magnussen. So Magnussen has a 20-second penalty now, and he's holding everyone up. And it seems a little bit unfair, doesn't it, that he's just out in front, 20 seconds behind, and it wouldn't be a problem for anyone.
Yeah, Tsunoda has been within 0.3 then half a second. The last about 5 laps in 13th, trying to get through on Magnussen, who is 7 seconds behind Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber, who has stayed out and not pitted. So actually, Magnussen's doing Zhou and his teammate Nico Hülkenberg a little bit of a favour. Those two haven't pitted. They stayed out on the medium compounded tyre. They're in 10th and 11th, and a bit of a buffer between themselves and Magnussen, with the entire rest of the field behind. That was the voice of Jenny Gow giving us that Williams update, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, the former F1 driver Jack Aitken, and the Formula One strategist Ruth Buscombe. It's lap 28 of 50 of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix under the lights at this Jeddah Corniche circuit. Verstappen leads in the Red Bull by over 7 seconds to his teammate Sergio Perez. Leclerc is third, then Norris fourth. A battle for fifth still brewing between Hamilton and Piastri in the McLaren. Then comes Alonso, Russell, Behrman, Hülkenberg the top 10, Zhou, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ocon, Albon the top 15, Sargent, Ricciardo, Bottas, the 18 drivers that still remain in this race, with the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll finding the wall and causing an early safety car, and Pierre Gasly retiring his Alpine due to gearbox issues.
So back to this battle behind the Haas of Magnussen, and it was Esteban Ocon and Alexander Albon that were battling into turn one. Ocon all over the road trying to make sure that Albon didn't slip one past him, and still through the winding sector one, he's trying to make sure that there's no chance for Albon to slip up the inside, because it does look like the Williams has the pace advantage in this group. He's managing to stay very close behind the gearbox of that Alpine, even in the dirty air and with that front wing damage. So if Albon can just get past a couple of these cars, and he's looking around the outside of turn 13, we don't often see moves there. Ocon squeezes into the wall and he has to back out of it, but my God, he's got some pace and he's coming back at him now.
Albon is trying to find every inch of road to get through on the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. Can't quite make it through 13. There'll be more opportunities brewing for the Thai driver, who's bringing his teammate Logan Sargent along for the ride as well, into the DRS zone, down towards the final corner, turn 27. Making their way through, and it's still Albon half a second behind. We're not quite there at turn 27, my apologies, but we're still now making our way towards it. And actually it's the Tsunoda RB that's getting within touching distance of 12th place Magnussen, forces Magnussen into a lockup as they make their way round the final corner, and Tsunoda in the RB is going to have DRS. Magnussen won't. Magnussen will be a sitting duck. He hugs the inside line, but RB and Tsunoda breeze past into the braking zone, late on the brakes. Magnussen hangs it round the outside. That becomes the inside for K-Mag. He's not giving an inch. The Dane forces the Japanese driver off the track and somehow holds on to that 12th position, and in that Tsunoda lost the position to Ocon as well, who made hay while the sun shone to get his Alpine up into 13th. It's Magnussen 12th, Ocon now 13th, Tsunoda 14th, and the two Williams close behind. Albon ahead of Sargent in 15th and 16th.
That was fiery driving from Magnussen. He looked like he was angry. He wanted to come back, and it didn't matter what the cost was going to be. All over the curbs on the apex of turn 2, and then showing Tsunoda the door, putting him right onto the dirty part of the track, which is what cost him that position to the Alpine of Ocon. But really, really hard driving, but fair, you have to say, from Magnussen. Here's a replay on board with Tsunoda. Breezes past with the DRS. He does defend going into turn 1, but he doesn't commit enough to the brakes. Allows the Haas to get up the inside of turn 2, and that puts him in a really tricky situation. He grounds out on the exit curve of turn 2, loses momentum, and the Alpines pass him as well.
I can only imagine the radio message from Tsunoda, and here it is.
What a dangerous driving.
Not as bad as I was expecting, to be honest. I think it's actually quite tame for Yuki Tsunoda.
I have to say, despite his 20 seconds of penalties, I think that was completely fair from Magnussen. So I don't think Yuki has a case.
I was here for that. That was very enjoyable to watch in the battle for 12th. And it's coming again. This time, though, Ocon is trying to get through on Magnussen, who weaves on the straight, takes that inside line again. Sparks fly from the underneath of the Haas. The Ocon Alpine can't find a way through. He's not close enough on this occasion. They'll have to tuck him behind as they feed out through turns 2 and down towards 3, and then the left-hander kink of turn 4. It's now Ocon in the Alpine leading the charge to get past Magnussen for 12th spot. Has a little look to the outside of 7, can't really make a move there, but he just wanted to have a little look-see in front of the Haas of Magnussen. Let's hear how the Dane's getting on.
Absolutely brilliant, Kev. Keep at it.
Some encouragement from the team there. He is doing a great job of defending this position. Again, Albon looking to the outside of 13 to get around Tsunoda. He draws alongside his side pod, but it's not enough, and he has to back out as they approach the wall on the exit. You just have the feeling that if Albon could get into that first position to attack the Haas, he would be the one that could make the move stick, because I don't think the Alpine of Ocon has the best pace in this group.
No, Alpine at the moment seem to be the slowest team, especially over a qualifying lap. But Ocon fighting the charge in 13th. Here's Albon in 15th.
Naughty.
Albon then referring to his battle with Tsunoda as this continues to rage on. What a fight. It's over 12th, okay. And I know a lot of people would wish this was the fight for the lead, but it's absolutely giving us some entertainment in this race.
Well, you say that, but there are, of course, cars up the road that still need to make their pit stop, so this could turn into positions for the points.
And actually on that, it's worth talking a little bit about the tyre situation. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, so Pirelli give us an update about the tyres before the start of the race. They predicted if you started on the medium, you'd go to lap 25 to 35. We're now in that window of lap 31 that people are going to be looking to come in to pit, but I don't know how far they could push. Ruth probably has more information about that than I could ever have.
Well, Ruth, now do you have more information about that?
Well, we have information from previous races. So the longest anyone's gone last year was 34 laps. That was Lewis Hamilton. And it really is, there's a difference between how far you can go and how fast you can go. Lando, now on radio.
I'll ask you a question. At some point, we've just got to go for plan A, we think, and then drive back through those cars. Do you think it's going to be possible?
I mean, yes, but I think we box as late as you can.
So Lando Norris then, discussing his plans, plan A, plan B, who knows, Ruth?
Well, they referred to the German situation before. They've done that twice before, Bahrain 2020, Silverstone 2022, and that's the McLaren message for go as long as you can in the hope that something is going to happen later. So what they're asking him there is how fast, how much further can he go competitively before they bolt on a tyre, potentially a soft even, and be able to carve through the cars in front.
I'm wondering if everybody on the pit wall is watching this battle for 12th and wondering something's going to happen at some stage here between Magnussen, Ocon, Tsunoda, Albon, Sargent. And Ruth, actually, on the pit wall, Magnussen has this 20-second time penalty, 2 10-second time penalties, as Ocon tries to get close under DRS, can't make it stick, no moves being done into turn 1 and 2. Do you think Haas have told Magnussen that he has these penalties?
It really depends on the situation. So you could probably go through the radio messages and see if they've told them. It depends whether or not we think that's going to motivate the driver or demoralise them as to whether or not you're going to tell them.
We are sensitive.
Would you want to be told, Jack, if you had 2 10-second time penalties?
Personally, I always want to be told, just because I feel like I will be able to handle the situation better if I know all the facts. That's not always going to be the case for every driver, but yeah, personally, I would prefer to know.
Well, I'll tell you what, while this battle continues for 12th, they've well and truly brought in Ricciardo in the RB in 17th, and Bottas now right on the back in the Sauber in 18th. They were quite adrift at the field, and that's how much Magnussen is holding everyone up behind him. A reminder, we are currently witnessing the closest battles out on track, which is the battle for 12th, so no points, but it is Pride. It might well become some points. We have still got a few more pit stops to come as this strategy unfolds. We've had a safety car, which saw the majority of the field come into the pits and trade their medium compound tyres for a fresh set of hards, with the exception of Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hülkenberg and Zhou Guanyu. They are all within the top 11. Then comes Magnussen in 12th, who has got, well, the rest of the entire field behind him, and they aren't getting through. Tsunoda tried a few times and failed. Ocon is trying and currently failing, and the two Williams are tucked in behind, and now Ricciardo and Bottas onto the back of this gaggle. It's Verstappen who leads by over 8 seconds, by the way. Perez is second, but a move finally being done. It's Albon in the Williams, down the inside on Tsunoda, makes the move stick with DRS late on the break. Tsunoda's not giving this one up, tries to keep his RB in it. It's side by side in the run down to the left-hander of turn 4, but Albon wins that one out. It's only one car through there, and it's the Williams ahead of the RB.
That was exactly what Albon needed to do. He needed to be a bit of a surprise move on Tsunoda, and going into turn 1 he wasn't quite there, but he just went for it anyway, managed to get the anchors on and slow it down, went straight to the apex, parked it there, and although Tsunoda got a bit of a cutback on him, he was able to get the move done. Really good stuff.
Now, Haas may be playing a bit of a team game here. We know that Hülkenberg still needs to pit, and he needs a 20-second gap to do that, and right now he's got that. So by Magnussen backing up that pack, he could theoretically now pit and come out in front of that gap.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, Ruth, at the moment. It's certainly unfolding that way because, in front of Magnussen is Joe and Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg's 10th, so inadvertently he's doing Joe a favour as well in the Sauber, who also started plumb last, having not been able to set a lap in qualifying due to a big crash for the Chinese driver in FP3.
And Hülkenberg is in the pit, so he will be racing Magnussen pit exit and should come out in front of that group, assuming the pit stop is good.
Here we go then, he makes his markers, the Haas team get to work, all 4 wheels in and out. It's a 3-second stop for Nico Hülkenberg, who makes his way back into the fast lane now. Where does he peel out? Zhou Guanyu makes it through into 10th, and he does get out well in front of his teammate Kevin Magnussen by over 2.5 seconds. Job well done for the Haas team there.
Defending like a lion, Magnussen. There's a brilliant bit of teamwork. Even if Magnussen's race is heavily compromised, Hülkenberg's still well in it for the points, and that's going to be a big result for them. But moving back forwards in the field, we're still looking. Here's Behrman's radio.
They're doing a mega job out there.
Just a bit of nice encouragement, and Piastri is getting a little bit closer now to Hamilton. He's been stuck there for a long time, but he's right up against him going into the last corner. Big bit of wheel spin as he comes out of the last corner. He's trying to get as much traction as he can. Tucked up behind the Mercedes now into turn 1.
DRS open for Lando Norris. Hamilton hugs the inside down towards turn 1. Norris though late on the brakes. Little bit of a lock up though as well. Piastri cuts the corner. Hamilton down to 6th. Hamilton gets through back again in front of Piastri. Apologies. Hamilton 5th. Piastri is in 6th. Trying his hardest still. Nearly got the job done. Lock up on the tyre. Back behind the 7-time champion. Just cannot find a way through. Hamilton is in 5th. Oscar Piastri is in 6th. With Lando Norris and the other McLaren up ahead in 5th spot. This is the sound riding on board with the Australian. Tucked into the inside. Nearly got the move done. Had to take the outside line though.
He's going to be kicking himself. He was so close to getting that move done. Just had to get the car slowed down and into the corner, even halfway good shape, but just snatched the inside front left as he started to put a bit of lock on the car, and that was enough to send him into the runoff area. But it looks like Hamilton might be coming in soon anyway. The Mercedes crew are shaping up for a pit stop.
Yeah, he's hung on well as Lewis Hamilton with 15 laps to go. The Mercedes crew start to gather in their garage, and is this the lap that Hamilton is finally going to come in and exchange that set of medium compound tyres. Before he comes in though, a rundown of the order. Verstappen leads, Perez, Leclerc, Norris, Hamilton, the top 5 embroiled in a great battle with Piastri for 6th. That's continuing on. Alonso 7th, Russell, Behrman, Joe, the top 10.
2 seconds ahead. That was fantastic. Well done. Excellent teamwork, Kev. Now just go for it as best you can.
Confirmation from Kevin Magnussen's team radio, well and truly playing the team game to hold up the rest of the field behind that Haas, to allow a gap for Nico Hülkenberg to come into the pits and get out in front of him. Hülkenberg came out in 11th after his pit stop, just behind Zhou Guanyu, who's yet to pit in the Sauber. Magnussen is 12th, Ocon, Albon, Tsunoda the top 15, Sargent, Ricciardo and Bottas, the 18 drivers still left in this race.
So now Hülkenberg has come out, both the Mercedes and the McLaren pit wall will be able to see how much quicker he's going on that hard tyre, because there's still a game to be played between Lando and Hamilton. If Hamilton goes earlier than Lando, he can still actually undercut him onto new tyres. So this could be the point at which they need to decide whether or not they're chasing a VSC or whether or not they're racing each other.
Yeah, only had the one safety car so far, haven't we? So, well, there you go, the commentator's curse. And the VSC, Ruth, is the virtual safety car. What's the difference between that and the normal safety car?
A safety car lasts 2 laps where you can pit, and then everybody bunches up, so you have a concertina effect. A VSC can last any amount of time, so it could end for you. But if you're actually pitting under a safety car, a VSC, because you're going the same speed, it's the same amount of loss, 11 seconds.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's the voice of the Formula 1 strategist, Ruth Buskin. We'll see how this unfolds. And on that, Ruth, Hamilton is finally told to come into the pits. That will release Oscar Piastri up into 5th in the McLaren. Into the pits comes Lewis Hamilton.
Going soft to the end. That's not what you think.
Soft to the end for Hamilton. That's the softest rubber, the fastest rubber of the compounds that Pirelli provide. He's in and out of his pit stop in 2.5 seconds, and he comes out of the pits, immediately releases the pit limiter, and should rejoin in some nice clean air behind Oliver Behrman, who is 8th now. Hamilton comes out in 9th. Joe, the top 10. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at the pit lane, Bottas came in as well. He's last of the field in 18th. He had a 5.1 second stop. He's gone on to soft tyres as well. Hamilton had a lightning fast stop as well. He managed that in 2.5 seconds onto the soft.
This is the sound of Fernando Alonso, just getting a little replay at what happened to the Spaniard.
He's been on the keys to the wall in turn 9, but all okay, all good.
Copy that, understood.
And that is Alonso confirming a little touch on the wall. That's as close as you want to get, Jack, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about as light a touch as you can get away with, or as heavy a touch as you can get away with. But it looks like it's going to coalesce into an interesting battle in the middle of the top 10 with these strategies now.
Lap 38 of 50, Verstappen leads Perez, leads Leclerc, Norris and Piastri, the top 5. Hamilton has just come into the pits finally. He's now on that soft compounder tyre. Faster rubber than those ahead of him, Ruth. Behrman will be first on his list.
Well, I think first on his list is actually Norris. So the gap to Norris, he's only got 3 seconds of margin, so he's now got a pit.
Norris in the pits, as you say. Let's see how this pit stop is. So quite crucial then for McLaren to do a nice, quick, clean stop. Let's see how they do. They do put the soft rubber on, but he's being held slightly the right rear. Slightly slow for McLaren's Lando Norris. It's a 4.1 second stop. That's the last thing McLaren needed for Lando Norris's race. Fine margins, and it's going to be close on pit exits. You miss out turn 1 and 2 when you come out of the pit lane exit. So Lando Norris just comes out in front of Lewis Hamilton, just about a second clear. That's as close as you want to get it.
Yeah, he was practicing the pit exit we saw on his way to the grid earlier on before the race, so using all of the track that he could in that little chicane on the way out. Going to get a replay now of the pit stop. It just looks like on the right rear they had a bit of trouble getting that tyre on, and it delayed by, he was 1.1 seconds slower than the other pit stop of Hamilton, I think. So yeah, even with that delay, it was enough.
Yeah, even with the delay, he had the margin, as you said. So doing the job on track and in the pits, despite the slight delay for Lando Norris, who comes out in 8th ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 9th. Joe Guan Yu, who has still, I believe, yet to pit. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, that's right. He's the only person who hasn't pitted. He started on those medium tyres, obviously done 39 laps on them. He's currently in 10th place, which would be a great result, but he does have to pit. That's mandatory in the Sauber, so we'll expect him in and see how far he can get back up.
Well, he's got 6.8 seconds to Nico Hülkenberg, then a further 4 seconds behind Magnussen. Ruth, what are Sauber clinging on to here?
Well, he's in P10 right now, and if there is a red flag, that P10 is his. So until the point that he loses that position to Hülkenberg, there's nothing really to gain or lose.
And Lewis Hamilton trying to gain more positions and gain 8th place on the road from Lando Norris, who's ahead of him in McLaren, both weaving quite heavily on the straights, and Hamilton closing dramatically up to Norris. They are both on the soft compound of tyre, so it really is even keel, at least in terms of tyre. Norris has the advantage on the track right now, though.
But this is what we've seen through practice. The McLaren doesn't have the top end speed and that's why Piastri took so long to get past Hamilton. Now with the situation reversed, Hamilton getting the toe and DRS, there was a massive straight line speed difference there as we jumped on board with Hamilton. So if he gets anywhere close to the back of that McLaren in the last corner, he might be able to jump Norris, even though he's not been the one that showed the better pace up until this point in the weekend.
Lando Norris is currently in 8th, then ahead of Hamilton. Just ahead of those two is Oliver Bearman, the 18-year-old British driver who is making his Formula One debut in place of the unwell Carlos Sainz, who's had diagnosed for... What is it again? What's he been doing? Appendicitis. That's it.
The one, yeah.
I couldn't get my word out there. Hamilton on the radio. That's impressive through the high speed with him talking about Norris. So as he tries to continue to hunt down the Briton, in front of them is Bearman in place of Carlos Sainz, who got diagnosed with appendicitis. He's had the surgery. He's actually back at the track watching on in the Ferrari garage. But Bearman was faster than Russell last time around, and Bearman having a decent race so far, Jack?
Yeah, he's been kind of hovering around the 6-second mark to Russell, and has started closing that in recent laps. Now 5.5 seconds back, but perhaps could be in touching distance by the end of the race if he keeps that up. But probably his bigger worry is the battling pair of Norris and Hamilton that are going to charge up to the rear of him in the next few laps.
When you've got a McLaren and a Mercedes behind you, both on soft, fresh rubber, you're going to be slightly worried, aren't you? Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just noticed that it's all the Brits together. So P6 is Russell, P7 Bearman, P8 Norris, and P9 Hamilton. So they're following each other nicely.
And I mentioned that Norris was weaving on the straights. I also thought Hamilton was as well. But and actually the weaving from Norris has been noted by race control. Jack, talk us through the rules around weaving when you're fighting for position.
I mean, this is one of those...
As exciting as that is.
No, it's one of those really subjective things that I think you have to be get on the good side of the steward and hope that you're lucky.
Norris is still 13 seconds back. He's having a bit of a fight with Hamilton.
Copy, give me the countdown of the laps. I'm in qualifying mode now.
So Alonso saying he's in qualifying mode, wants to be given the countdown of laps. So Alonso pushing hard then. He's 5th, 4 seconds behind Piastri, 1.2 seconds ahead of Russell.
Yeah, the weaving is one of the subjective things that if the car isn't directly behind you and in danger of getting alongside you, it's not really as much of a safety issue. But you do have to then make one move as soon as they get right up behind you. So Norris there, he was weaving to try and break the toe earlier in the straight, which normally shouldn't be an issue as long as you're not too obvious. And then as Hamilton came up right behind him, he made a dive to the inside on the left to cover his place. It's a bit on the edge, and that's probably why the stewards were unhappy with that.
Verstappen is leading this race, by the way, in case you're wondering, by 8.9 seconds to Sergio Perez in 2nd. Leclerc is 3rd, Piastri 4th, Alonso the top 5. Verstappen is actually coming up on the gaggle of cars. They're all behind Kevin Magnussen in 12th and downwards. Alonso is the top 5, Bearman, Norris, Hamilton, Joe the top 10. They're your current point scorers. Joe Guan Yu and the Sauber yet to pit. Jenny. Yeah,
worth bearing in mind, Perez has a 5-second penalty and Magnussen has a 20-second penalty. So filter that into your equations, and Leclerc, I think, is too far back at the moment to challenge for that second place, even with the penalty.
Yeah, he is 12 seconds back from Sergio Perez. So Perez just has been within 6 to 8 seconds of his teammate Sergio Perez since the Mexican was able to get up into 2nd place. So all calm on the Red Bull pit wall as they get into the closing stages of this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And once again, it's domination from Max Verstappen, who has not put a foot wrong.
So the stewards have decided to give Norris a black and white flag for the weaving there. They've decided that wasn't okay with Hamilton so close behind him. And the instruction from the pit wall at McLaren is going to be, you've got to play it on the safe side now. You can't try and break the toe and just err on the safe side to avoid any kind of a penalty.
And on lap 42, Ruth, Joe has decided to come into the pits. So here's Bearman first.
At this pace, will Norris catch us or not?
Yeah, we believe so in 4 laps.
Yeah, Bearman being told that he will be caught by Norris in about 4 laps' time. Further back then, Joe has now fallen out of the points. Sauber then clinging on, Ruth, for any kind of safety car strategy, ultimately not panning out.
Yes, I think that was just for the red flag, because it means they would have been able to get that precious last point for P10.
They're having a problem though as well, Ruth, on the front right for Sauber. They had a problem on Valtteri Bottas's Sauber pit stop last time around. And is it another wheel nut issue? That was the same issue they had with Bottas's car in Bahrain. And it's a long pit stop for Joe, who will feed out behind his teammate in last. Misery for Sauber.
Yeah, there was a bit of a faff with the wheel nut. Exactly, I think it was the same issue on the right corner. So, yeah, double woe for them. Now looking a bit further up, Russell is getting right behind Alonso now. He's quietly worked his way back up to the Aston Martin there. And he is in DRS now, very importantly, as we mentioned earlier, worth a lot of lap time around this circuit. So if he can stay close to him through the twists and turns of Sector 1, he's going to close right up on the second half of the lap.
Yeah, last lap around. Alonso and Piastri are fairly even in terms of pace at the moment. So Alonso's kind of stuck in that 4-second gap to Piastri ahead.
We might have a chance to stay in front of both of them. Just focus fastest race till the end.
So that's Behrman. Might have a chance to stay in front of Hamilton at the end. Russell, though, in front, was about 2 tenths faster than Alonso last lap around. So Russell is closing on Fernando Alonso for 5th. Alonso's 5th, Russell comes 6th. Then it's Behrman, who you just heard on the radio there, trying to think about strategy in 7th. He's trying to think about how he can stay in front of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton in the McLaren behind, and Mercedes behind him. They both on the soft compound of tyre. Norris is 3.8 seconds behind Behrman, and then Hamilton just a further second behind as well, into the closing stages of this race. This is going to be a tough one for Behrman to cling on. A lot to think about in his first race.
It is, but every lap that goes by that they don't catch him, that's Norris and Hamilton on the soft, it's working in his favour. The freshness of that tyre just going away and getting worse and worse, degrading ever so slightly more, and creating a smaller pace difference between Behrman and those two guys who have just pitted. So if he can just extend it out, he's got much more of a chance of keeping them behind when they do catch him.
Still moves being done further back in the pack as well, not for points but for that 12th place, which we've spoken about quite a lot, or just behind it at least. It was Albon getting up into 13th. Oh no, was he getting up to 12th in front of Ocon? So Albon 12th, Ocon in the Alpine down to 13th now in front of Tsunoda. Sargent is 15th, Ricciardo is 16th in the RB in what has been a bit of a tough race, tough weekend for the Australian. And the two Saubers, 17th and 18th, Bottas ahead of Joe. So the weekends for RB and Sauber certainly not what they would have wanted to come away with, but the battles are still to be decided, at least in the lower end of the points. Alonso is 5th, 1.2 seconds ahead of Russell. He is slowly catching the Spaniard. Behrman in the Ferrari is 7th, Norris is 8th, Hamilton is 9th. Can Norris and Hamilton catch up to Behrman? Can Hamilton get past Norris? Can Russell catch up to Alonso? They haven't got long left to make any kind of moves, but at the moment no one's making massively great inroads. Last lap around, they're all fairly within a tenth or so of each other.
That's what I'm seeing as well. Gaps are kind of stabilising, and you know, with Alonso and Russell's actually fallen out of the DRS zone where he was just in it before. He's hovering just over a second behind, not quite able to close up into that gap.
And now he's struggling a bit with tyres there. He's fighting with Hamilton as well. We can do it.
Yep, exactly. So they're struggling to close the gap. That's what I was going to say next. Norris, who was taking absolute chunks out of Behrman in terms of lap time when he first came out of the pits, seconds a lap, it's now turning into tenths, and even it's stabilising to just a couple of tenths a lap, which is nowhere near enough.
Hamilton, though, just dipped down to within DRS range of Lando Norris, but quickly that is dispelled. A bit of relief. One of the highlights of the weekend so far has actually been seeing Oliver Behrman's father, David, in the Ferrari garage with rather stressful looks on his face. He's still looking a little bit stressed, but the closer we get to the checkered flag, I'm sure he'll become a little more relaxed, as Behrman has had a very solid race in that Ferrari, chucked in at the deep end, was meant to be doing a Formula 2 race, his second round in that Formula 2 championship. He was fast around this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix track, set pole position for the F2 race before the call-up for free practice 3 to replace an unwell Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz recovering from appendicitis. We hope to see him back for the Australian Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time. But Behrman currently in 7th. The battle behind now, though, starting to heat up again. Hamilton half a second behind Behrman behind Norris as they come out of the final corner. Hamilton will get the DRS. Norris keeps a straight line, doesn't do any weaving. He's already been noted by race control for that. Moves to the inside under braking. Can't find a way through, could Lewis. Hamilton has to back out of it on that occasion. Norris lives to fight another day, but Hamilton is closing and closing. Has a little lip to the inside of turn 4. You're not going to make a move through there. It's one way only for Lando Norris ahead of Lewis Hamilton. This is the battle for 8th and 9th. Jenny Gow.
Ollie Behrman will have a sigh of relief with this going on. It's distracting them and taking them away from fighting with his Ferrari. Absolutely. The gap between Behrman and Norris is just under 3 seconds at the moment, but Norris will be looking a little more in his mirrors at where the 7-time champion behind is placing that Mercedes, although Hamilton gave it a good effort, but he's fallen back a little bit now as they make their way around the lap.
Yeah, when you have such a straight line speed difference, it's so hard for the driver in front. It's really frustrating because you have to build such a cushion when you go into that double DRS zone at the end of this lap, the first going into the final corner and then of course the second across the start finish line. You know, Hamilton, he was barely within DRS as they came through that first zone, but it towed him up to the back of Norris into the last corner. He had a decent last corner and then he was within striking range into turn 1. Complete opposite scenario to when he was defending from Piastri earlier. But here's Russell.
Wind speed picking up now, 15 kph headwind, turn 1.
Russell being told about the headwinds as he continues to try and hunt down Fernando Alonso. That's Russell in the Mercedes. He's in 6th, 1.3 seconds back from Fernando Alonso, who is holding on to that 5th place. It's Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Piastri, Alonso, the top 5. Russell, Behrman, 6th and 7th. The battle for 8th still well and truly on between Norris in the McLaren and Hamilton now, who has the fastest lap, in 9th. He'll get an extra point for that if he could hold on to that fastest lap and indeed maintain that top 10 position, which looks pretty good because 29 seconds back from him is Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, looking to try and score Haas's first points of the season. Magnussen 11th, Albon, Ocon, Tsunoda, Sargent the top 15, Ricciardo, Bottas and Zhou, the 18 drivers that remain in this race.
Now Behrman, he's still got that cushion to Norris and Hamilton, but they are creeping ever closer. It's like we said, it's only a few tenths a lap at the moment, so it's not enough really to challenge him, but they are in his mirrors. Can the 18-year-old keep a cool head, avoid any mistakes like we saw in his qualifying 2 session, and just keep the car between the white lines? That's all he needs to do at this stage.
It's the fastest game of chess between Norris and Hamilton as it currently stands, but Norris is winning out for the time being. 1.2 seconds the gap between himself and Hamilton. This is really the closest battle on the track. Ricciardo is 1.3 seconds behind Sargent for 15th and 16th, so that's for 15th. Verstappen though is leading and only has a few laps left to go before he takes his 2nd win of the season in commanding style. The gap actually has come down between himself and Perez in the last couple of laps. It was up to 8 seconds, now down to 6.5 seconds. I wonder if that's just Verstappen easing off slightly in these final stages. Well, it's not like Verstappen to ease off, especially if he hasn't got the fastest lap.
I think it was the blue flags.
Ah, very good point, coming up on traffic. Indeed, we caught him at one point coming up behind the Alpine of Ocon, so in that gaggle between 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th.
I was going to say, I saw some onboard of him earlier in the race about 10 laps ago. Didn't look like he was backing up at all. He was as close to those walls as ever. And if you want to see something impressive, look at his pole lap from yesterday. It's on YouTube. But yeah, doing an impressive job as always, the Dutchman.
He did come very close to hitting the wall though, didn't he, in qualifying Verstappen? We went a bit missed in the session yesterday.
I went frame by frame at turn 4. I couldn't tell if there was any gap between that tyre and the barrier. It was truly impressive. I don't know if it was by mistake or not, but considering his exploits over the last few years, I dare say it was not by mistake.
And of course, back in 2021, it was that final corner that meant he didn't line up on pole for that all-important race.
Very good point. Yeah, very good point. I'm impressed, Aitken. You're going frame by frame in the evening post-session, doing your homework nicely. That's what we like to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Lap 49 of 50 then, the penultimate lap of this race. Verstappen 7 seconds clear from teammate Perez, Leclerc 3rd, Piastri 4th, Alonso 5th. All of the gaps beginning to be well and truly stabilised now. Russell 6th, Behrman 7th. Looks like he might well be able to hold on to that. Norris is 2.5 seconds behind in 8th. 7/10 though the gap between Norris and Hamilton. Hamilton is not going to give this one up without a fight. Hulkenberg rounds out the top 10. They are your point scoring positions. Magnussen just on the fringes, but he has a 20-second time penalty. This is the sound of Daniel Ricciardo, whose race goes from bad to worse as he comes through turn 1, clouts the curb, and then the RB just spins round on him, Jack.
Yeah, it looks like I don't know, it just looks like he was struggling with the tyres, because when he came off of that curb and you had that little bit of bouncing and disturbance to the car, it just immediately started to slide on him. So yeah, his race goes from bad to worse. He's been struggling the whole weekend, Ricciardo.
Yeah, he has not been happy in that RB. Couldn't really explain his lack of pace in qualifying and hasn't really shown up in the race today, sadly, and that's been compounding things. He's in 16th still, only the 2 Saubers behind, Bottas and Joe. No Lance Stroll in this race. He crashed out early doors, brought the safety car out, and Pierre Gasly had to retire due to a gearbox issue with his Alpine. So the first retirements of the year after getting all 20 drivers to the checkered flag in Bahrain. But it is very much a case of rinse and repeat for round 2 under the lights at the Jeddah Corniche circuit for Max Verstappen, who we haven't really seen much of as he makes his way around the final lap. And an imperious drive once again, 8 seconds clear for the time being between himself and Sergio Perez, doing what he needs to do once again in being the backup to his teammate Max Verstappen. Leclerc looking strong in 3rd to hold on to that podium position, but Max Verstappen has had only to deal with the start, where he immediately cut across to defend from Leclerc and navigating the traffic through blue flags. He can't fault his driving and he can't fault the car. Led by an expert design team headed up by Adrian Newey, round the final corner for one last time. For Max Verstappen, the reigning champion, the Dutchman, wins the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, 2 races in 2024, 2 wins for the Dutchman, and it's 2 1-2 finishes for Red Bull as Sergio Perez crosses the line in 2nd. The crowd are up on their feet cheering. It will be Charles Leclerc who gets his first podium of the season in 3rd. A nice, strong drive from the Monegasque. Piastri will come home in 4th. In front of Alonso, the top 5. Russell will hold on for 6th. And a word has to go to the young 18-year-old Briton, Oliver Behrman. A little snap on the steering wheel as he comes out of the final corner. Parachuted into Formula 1 this weekend. Crosses the line on debut with Ferrari. And points for the Essex boy in 7th. Oliver Behrman. Fantastic effort from the young Briton as the Ferrari team cheer. Leclerc 3rd for them, and Behrman following up in 7th, in front of Norris, who wins the battle for 8th in front of Hamilton. 9th, Hulkenberg 10th.
Nice shot, mate. Well controlled.
Yeah, good race that. Times were a little bit cold at the end, but I think we had good pace. Managed the whole race well. So another fantastic weekend. Well done, everyone.
Well done, Max. That was absolutely clinical. So another 1.2 finish. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. Good result for the team again. Great job.
9th consecutive race victory for Max Verstappen, looking to match and break his own record from setting last season. Let's see if he can do it. He won't have very long to do it as the 2 Red Bulls line up side by side. Sergio Perez coming home in 2nd, starts the year with consecutive 2nd place finishes. The man who stood on the top step of the podium here this time last year will have to settle for the 2nd rung. And Charles Leclerc in 3rd. Gets the final spot on the podium, Jack.
And the fastest lap. He could pull that out right at the end. It's pretty impressive. He'd been on those hard tyres a long time, so good job by him. But his teammate, Oliver Behrman, I mean, here he is on the radio.
And P7, also on top, mate. And more
Mega,
slow.
good job, buddy. Congratulations.
Not bad, I think. Yeah, I would have liked to go a bit longer on that soft at the start because it felt good. Just, difficult to overtake. But no, the car was mega today, so thank you.
I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun out there.
Oliver Behrman then on the radio, the fourth consecutive driver to score points when making his Grand Prix debut for Ferrari. It's no mean feat. Fred Vasseur on the radio there congratulating him. Jack, you predicted top 6. He just missed out on that, but I think he could be happy with 7.
Yeah, poor show, Oliver, honestly.
Aiken would have been sick.
I dare not. Straight in with the excuses, like any good driver as well, right? He felt like he could have got more out of that, but that's the mark of any true sportsman. He wanted more. He came in with high expectations for himself, even if outwardly he was being quite humble and quite sensible. But great job by him.
You're the driver of the day out there. Good showing.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
No surprises there. Oliver Behrman has been voted the driver of the day by the public vote, but the plaudits go to Max Verstappen as well, who pulls up in that all too familiar P1 position, clambers out of the RB20, places the steering wheel back into its rack and climbs up onto his car and celebrates, fist bumps the air, the fireworks go off and light up the midnight sky above this Jeddah Corniche circuit. Alongside him, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull and Charles Leclerc third for Ferrari. Piastri fourth, Alonso fifth, Russell sixth ahead of Behrman, Norris, Hamilton and Hülkenberg. Excellent job from the Haas team after an issue in qualifying prevented him from setting a competitive lap time, and great teamwork as well on the strategy for Haas with Hülkenberg. That'll be an important point, won't it, Ruth, for the Haas team?
Yes, that's 5 championship positions at this point.
Absolutely is in these early stages, and because it is so tight and competitive between the teams behind Red Bull, to get 1 point will be massive for Haas. It does catapult them up, as you say. Just outside the points, Albon in 11th. Magnussen did cross the line in 12th, bearing in mind he has 2 10-second time penalties to contend with. On the line, though, he finished ahead of Ocon, Tsunoda and Sargent in the top 15. Ricciardo 16th, Bottas 17th and Joe 18th. And last of the classified drivers, with Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin crashing out early doors, causing the safety car. He was out of the car, he was fine, the car not so much. And Pierre Gasly in the Alpine complained of gearbox issues on the formation lap, did take the start but then was called very quickly into the pits to retire that Alpine, the first retirements of the 2024 season. Well, Jack, once again, you can't fault Max Verstappen, can you?
No, but it does strike me that both from the Red Bull team and the mechanics that were a little bit muted in their celebration compared to what I've seen in the past. And Max himself, it almost felt like he did a bit of a fist pump when he got out of the car, but it was almost as if to say, yeah, there's another one. I mean, that's what he's got to contend with at this stage, isn't it? He's so dominant now, so consistent. He's got to keep that motivation going somehow, and I don't know how he does it, but he's in danger possibly of falling into that trap. But another great performance. Yeah,
he has been relentless, but of course there is no getting away from the cloud that is currently surrounding the Red Bull team, with the off-track controversies that still continue to evolve. But let's hear from our top 3 drivers, starting with Charles Leclerc. He's talking
Charles,
to David Coulthard. Congratulations,
your first podium of the year. It's only the second race, but after a great qualifying yesterday, the pace of the Red Bull's just too strong for you.
Yeah, we had quite a good pace because we have the fastest lap at the end. I got a bit helped by a DRS, but overall the feeling was pretty good. It was a bit of a boring race because the Red Bull were a bit too quick, and behind we had a bit of a gap, but we took the maximum points we could today, and that was the target, so that's great.
Yeah, congratulations on that point for fastest lap. This is a tough race circuit. The pace of this race, I can see you're visibly sweating more than in some Grand Prix. How did it compare to last year?
From last year, it's actually a step better. I don't know why exactly. Maybe because I was a bit more on my own, so you have a bit less adrenaline in the car. But all in all, it's definitely one of the most physical racetrack of the season. It's warm, but most of all, I think it's more for the neck. There are so many high speed and so very, very difficult, but also very, very fun to drive.
Excellent. Well, look, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask about your teammate for this weekend. He was voted driver of the day. Oliver Behrman brought points home. How impressed have you been with him getting thrown in the deep end?
I mean, he completely deserves it. He's done an incredible job already from FP3. He was straight on the pace in qualifying. He did a great job and missed Q3 by so little. And I think today he's been incredible. I mean, 7th in your first race in Formula 1, having done only in FP3 in a new car is just hugely impressive. So I'm sure he's extremely proud, but everybody has noticed how talented he is, and I guess it's just a matter of time before he comes here in Formula 1.
Okay, Charles, enjoy the podium.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now we have Checo Perez, the winner here last year, second this time, but I have the impression this was a stronger race this weekend than in Bahrain. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we definitely made some good progress. I think it was a shame that we just qualify out of the front row because we had a great start. Unfortunately, Charles really kept it together and we couldn't get through. It was a nice fight then later on. And then it was quite a compromised race, I'll say, with the safety car there so early. It was a very long stint on the hard. And it was tricky at times, especially in the beginning. We had no warm-up at all. We were sliding a lot. It took us a long time to get through Lewis and Lando. But I think overall, it's a great day for the team. You know, very different track to Bahrain, and we keep being strong. So yeah, we just have to keep this momentum going. I think we've taken a step forward from Bahrain. We've done good improvements from yesterday, so we still have some bits to tidy up, and our time will come.
You mentioned there about the safety car. We just saw on the screen behind you, very tight with Fernando and the Aston. That's always going to be the case in those sort of double stacking situations.
Yeah, it was a shame that we got that penalty. Luckily, it didn't hurt our race. But I think in this scenario, you know, I was quite close to Max, and everyone was coming in at the same time. We just need a wider pit lane.
Yeah, okay, well, enjoy that podium. Congratulations on second place. And now for our winner, Max, your 56th victory in Formula 1 and your first century of podiums. You must be feeling good.
Yeah, I think overall, of course, a fantastic weekend for the whole team, but also for myself. I felt really good with the car. And also basically it was the same in the race. Of course, the last stint was a bit longer than we would have liked, but with the safety car, you had to go for it. So the last few laps also with those back markers, with the cold tires, was a little bit slippery, but we had good pace all around. We could manage it quite well with the gap also. So overall, very, very pleased.
You mentioned yesterday in qualifying the car was on rails. Sounds like it was a bit more challenging on this circuit, especially with the long stint.
Yeah, exactly. I think ideally you don't want to do such a long stint on that tire, but we had to. And that, of course, around here with all these high-speed corners, if the tire falls out of the window a little bit, it makes it all a bit more tricky.
We heard from Charles mentioning that this is a tough one on the neck. Do you have any feeling of that when you were doing your Grand Prix?
Yeah, this is always, early in the season as well, anti-clockwise, a lot of Gs constantly throughout the whole lap. So it's definitely always one of the more physical ones.
Okay, well, Max, congratulations on your second victory of the year.
Thank you.
So that is Max Verstappen winning race 2 in Saudi Arabia. Another one, 2 for 2. Harry, he looks imperious. There's no one stopping him winning this championship. And I hate to say that on round 2 of a very long season, but he just looks so good no matter what you throw at him.
This is Max Verstappen's championship. The 2024 champion is Max Verstappen. There's no point in trying to downplay that.
I thought you were going to mic drop then.
No. There's just no point in trying to find ways of it going away. The reliability looks absolutely brilliant as well, so that's not even a factor. And that's the brutality of it at the moment. And you can't fault him. You can't fault Red Bull. This is sport at the end of the day, and sport rewards the people who are best at it, and they are the best.
Yeah, our chief F1 writer Andrew Benson has written up the story online if you want to go and check it out then, saying that Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko will stay at the team. He's had his talks already with the chief executive officer Oliver Mintzlaff, and he said he will stay at the team amid the controversy, and that means Max will stay at the team too. So any thoughts about Max possibly leaving because of the unrest at Red Bull seem to have gone away too. So that's that settled. Jack Aitken, you're a driver. You've driven a Formula 1 race. What is Oliver Behrman going to be feeling right now? He finished 7th in that Ferrari. I think obviously he drives the day, but he's done such a good job.
Yeah, I think he handled that amazingly. He did a really good job. Stayed out of trouble on the first couple of laps, which was no mean feat. He was right in the thick of it in the midfield battle, protected his car really well, let the race come to him, didn't get too frustrated when he was bundled up behind the Hülkenberg in the Haas, and just generally drove a great stint to finish the race as well, which guaranteed that he didn't get caught by Hamilton and Norris on the faster tyres. So he was really, really impressive, and I think he's really booked himself a ticket to the grid for next year. He even got a hug from Lewis Hamilton in Parc Fermé afterwards. Doesn't get much better than that.
He looked a little bit wobbly actually when he got out of the car.
I'm not surprised. It's a really physical track. We spoke about it yesterday, but it's a big step up in physicality and G-force for these guys. And he at least in terms of lap time, he handled it brilliantly. He might be a bit wobbly now.
I think his dad's underneath the podium, his brother's underneath the podium as well. John Elkann, who's the executive chairman for Ferrari, was watching that race. As you say, he's marked his card, hasn't he? And they must be pretty happy. Not only do they have Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, they also have Oliver Behrman.
Yeah, and like I said, he handled a lot of different things in that race and took it all on and made a really good job of all of the situations presented to him. So I think he's done a fantastic job. He's definitely put himself in contention for a seat at one of the Ferrari customer teams, or even Ferrari in the short future.
The other thing worth saying as well, sorry Jack, is that Charles Leclerc has been so positive about them, and also acknowledging how great the Ferrari simulator program has been as well, and their driver academy, and being able to prepare Oliver Behrman so well that he can just slot in last minute and do an absolutely brilliant job. So it's worth bringing that up as well.
Absolutely. It's interesting that the Red Bull team who won this race are above the podium. So a couple of the engineers, some of the mechanics are kind of on the top step, whilst the podium is going on underneath them. And below that, you've got Adrian Newey, Christian Horner and Jerry Horner standing there watching Max Verstappen going onto the podium, winning, and another one too for Red Bull. Ruth Bascom, it was so nice to have your input into the race, and I think it gave everyone so much. What are your final thoughts after round 2 Jeddah?
Well, I think there's 3 kind of standout drives. Obviously, Verstappen's dominant drive, nothing can be taken away from that. Obviously, Oliver Behrman, I think that makes him the 80th driver of all time to score points on debut.
And with the stats so early, Ruth.
Yeah, it's the first ever race we've had FDA drivers in both of those seats for the junior driver program at Ferrari. And Hülkenberg, the Haas team, they're actually the slowest car in high-speed corners yesterday, and they've managed to take away a precious point by being the only one of those 4 cars that didn't take that safety car to actually make positions through that, by using teamwork to hold up the rest of the pack with Kevin Magnussen.
Yes, so important for them. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, you can hear more from our expert panel who will be here for the podcast. So that will be online later on today. But I think we need to wrap things up in Saudi. It's only 2 weeks and 1 day until we have a race in Australia. One of the ones that stands out because you can get a bacon butty and sit down and enjoy the race in front of you and listening to us. Harry Benjamin, Jack Aitken, Ruth Bascom, thank you so much. Thank you to the crew here. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.